think, the culmination of an attempt to get off of this fossil fuel reliance and then realizing, hey, we're actually not ready for that, bearing witness to what we're seeing in Europe and the way Russia has been able to sort of control energy exports to much of Eastern and Central Europe. Um, I'm curious where your thoughts are on the future of energy and how fossil fuels fit into that future.
Yeah, I think fossil fuels are here to stay. And this is something that I point out in the article is that if you think you can get rid of fossil fuels, you're crazy and you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Because you look at fossil fuels and what it enables, and you would have to get rid of all of those things. So cheap transportation, air travel, all manner of plastics. You can't get any of that stuff if you take away oil, for example, right? Like you can't have air travel on anything. I guess you can try like using hydrogen and trying blimps again or something like that. But like you can't have air travel the way we have it now without an efficient energy source like jet fuel. And the fact of the matter is that like we're talking about net zero, right? Like, oh, we want to eliminate all this stuff. That's lunacy. I honestly think that's lunacy because you are um, essentially saying, okay, let's get rid of all this because there might be more carbon dioxide in the air, including air travel and all these plastics and all these products. I mean, like fossil fuel products are everywhere. Like literally, almost everything that you touch or use every day, like they probably have some petroleum product in it. And we don't recognize these things as, oh, okay, well, we should stop drilling and like just pay way more for the substitutes that would come on, or like just do without these things. It's an anti-human thing. The thing is like uh, you need fossil fuels for a lot of this stuff, and it's especially good for developing countries. And this is something that a lot of people just completely refuse to understand. Kind of like with Bitcoin, right? It's enormously useful for developing countries because they can say no to the IMF. Fossil fuels would be very useful, but they're prevented from using it. So I think it's here to stay. I think as countries like El Salvador get off of the dollar standard and go towards a Bitcoin standard, what they'll realize is, hey, if we fire up a coal plant, everyone can have reliable electricity. Or if we figure out how to build a nuclear power plant, everyone can have reliable electricity. And maybe we can start refining oil for something that we find off the coast, or maybe we can start doing some offshore drilling or something like that, and then they can get their industry and develop. And that's the dream of every developing country is to get to become more developed. And the unfortunate thing is, with all of these restrictions like ESG, they're prevented from doing so, and somehow we see it as compassion when it's not.
I'm curious how much do you equate the ESG mandates and stuff to be like virtue signaling, self-serving versus actually no, virtue signaling towards citizens and the masses versus being self-serving and in the self-interest of these countries that are developed to essentially prevent developing nations from reaching that sort of status and level.
Yeah, I think it's much more the latter. And the ESG mandates like definitely increase the monetary imperialism that most of them have. And if you keep them dependent on you, if the thing is, soon as you have like a good domestic industry, you can be self-sufficient monetarily, right? Like if you, and this was the case for Venezuela until Chavez took over. They had actually a very good resource. It was kind of like it was a booming economy, and they were able to participate in the world economy. And they've turned it back into sort of like a developing country again by all of these socialist programs. But if you have a really good domestic industry, you can become a developed country. And like for any industry, you're going to need lots of energy inputs, because you're not going to be able to compete against anybody else if you don't have good energy inputs. What's if you have a natural resource that's not found anywhere else, what's going to happen is, well, just go ship it to China and they'll take care of the manufacturing. You're not going to have a domestic industry. You're going to be participating in somebody else's domestic industry. And in fact, that's more or less what the rest of the world does. If you look at who trades with who, everybody trades with China as like their top trading partner, because that's where all of the manufacturing goes. And that's where all the industry and civilization building honestly are at this point, instead of in these countries. So you don't develop infrastructure, heavy equipment, machinery, factories, capital goods, really. None of that goes into these developing countries because you're lacking one of the most basic inputs that all of those things need, which is energy.